Hello and welcome to another virtual Justice on the Block clinic. My name is Charlotte Waters, Communications Director for Legal Services of North Florida. And with me today is Alex Richmond, Staff Attorney over at Legal Services of North Florida as well. And we want to talk to you today about some misconceptions that are out there around COVID-19 and evictions. So go ahead and take it away, Alex.
All right. So yeah, like Charlotte said, I want to address some misconceptions that we've been seeing kind of in general in our community with COVID-19 and evictions in general. It'll be fairly short, but just wanted to cover them, hopefully to clear it up. So there we go. So the first misconception that we're seeing, and this one's going to be kind of the bulk of the discussion, is that the eviction moratorium is not needed. It still is, despite how long this has been going on and how everyone's very anxious to kind of be over this, to put the pandemic behind them. It's still currently happening. There still is a danger of the COVID-19 pandemic, and although it is slowing, it's still happening. The intent of the CDC moratorium is to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 and doing that by temporarily suspending the evictions for covered persons of residential properties for non-payment of rent. The reason being is when people are evicted, they become higher risk to contract COVID-19 and higher risk to transmit that in the community across the country. So, putting people into these crowded, congregate settings, moving in with family or having to move into a shelter, that's going to put people at a greater risk of contracting COVID-19. So despite the millions of vaccines that have been distributed, there's still over 140 million cases of COVID-19 globally, which have resulted globally in over 3 million deaths. And just in the United States, there's over 31 million cases of COVID-19, with new cases being reported daily in the amount of around 66,000 or above 66,000 as our current daily trend, and over 560,000 deaths in our country as well. And not only that, but at this time, there are also new variants of COVID-19 that seem to be a lot more contagious and that are spreading throughout our communities, including our own in Leon County. So, like I said, as much as we're anxious and ready to be done with this pandemic and we want to put it behind us, especially now that the vaccine's out, it's still happening. It's something that we have to make sure to mitigate the spread of, and that's the purpose of this eviction moratorium. And to continue with that as well, it's needed as well because of the unemployment issues that we're currently facing and still facing, have been facing due to the pandemic. Nationally, there's been a disproportionate impact on communities of color with unemployment rates. The unemployment rate for African American workers more than doubled between January 2020 and June 2020, which rose to a 15% peak versus a 9% peak for white Americans. As of February 2021, a national survey found that 29% of Black renters, 22% of Latino renters, and 13% of white renters said that they were not current on their rent. And then additionally, the work from home status, there's a disparate impact or disproportionate result with that as well, where only 20% of African American workers seem to be able to work from home, versus 30% of white American and 37% of Asian American workers. So there is a disproportionate impact on unemployment in our nationally, and then locally in our own community, we also are facing large amounts of unemployment or low amounts of work. So while Florida is reporting that their unemployment rate is 3.8%, which sounds great, according to the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's evidence in multiple reports that Florida's unemployment numbers have been inaccurately portrayed, mostly due to misclassifying individuals as employed searching for work and unemployed, or if people working, gig work like Uber and stuff like that, even though they're not back up to the full amount of money that they were making, or not nearly enough, they're being misclassified. And then approximately 800,000 individuals were not reported as of the summer of 2020. So the unemployment rate's likely a lot higher. And then in Leon County, as of December 2020, we doubled unemployment numbers and had 14,835 less people working compared to the year prior. And then Leon County has lost more than 12,000 jobs in 2020. Our Department of Economic Opportunity records indicate that our capital region lost over 4,600 jobs in the leisure and hospitality industry. And government jobs were down 3,800, along with 1,800 jobs in trade, transportation, utility sectors, and 1,600 jobs in the professional and business services sector. So even though, like I said before, people are ready to be done with this pandemic, we're still reeling from the effects of it on our community. We haven't fully recovered our employment numbers, and there are a lot of people that are out of work or have severely reduced work. So this eviction moratorium is still needed because, again, people on unemployment or people who aren't able to work the same as they were before because those jobs just aren't available, essentially they're at a risk of being kicked out and having to move into those close congregate settings, being at a high risk for COVID-19. And additionally, in regards to unemployment, there's a disproportionate impact for working from home. So first, throughout the pandemic, parents had to essentially make a decision of either working from home or leaving work to keep their kids or at-risk family members safe, or maintaining their employment in an office and sending their kids or loved ones to school or something, where they're at a higher risk. So the number of online learning in Leon County, first it's hurting children in general, the amount of online learning there is, but currently there's 21,379 students attending class in person in district schools, and there are 9,266 still enrolled in their school's digital academy. So there's a significant amount of people or significant amount of children that are still doing online learning, which necessitates workers or people who would otherwise be at work having to stay at home. Additionally, back in June of last year, 42% of the United States labor force was able to work at home, but the people who are working at home tended to be white-collar employees and professionals, which resulted in those offices being shut down because they weren't going there anymore, which in turn resulted in a lot of more blue-collar jobs or other jobs that just can't be done from home, having to shut down, and there's a possibility where they aren't going to be able to come back because, like a large number of canteen, lunch hour, restaurant workers, janitors, and others lost their jobs because of that work at home impact. So there's a disproportionate impact on who this is affecting. And then finally, additionally, like I said before, families are having to choose between working or taking care of their loved ones during this pandemic. And there's a lot of research that shows that mothers particularly are having to shoulder that burden during the pandemic, either trying to work from home or just having to take care of their kids and quit their job. And then finally, on this misconception as well, people are still experiencing homelessness, and additionally, they're at a greater risk of contracting COVID-19. Like I said, according to the CDC, extensive outbreaks of COVID-19 have been identified in homeless shelters. During a 15-day period where they monitored an outbreak in Boston, Massachusetts, researchers estimated cumulative indication of around 46.3 cases of COVID-19 per 1,000 persons who are experiencing homelessness, compared to 1.9 cases per 1,000 among regular Massachusetts adults. So if you're homeless, if you're in those close congregate settings, you're definitely higher at risk of contracting COVID-19, simply because you aren't able to isolate yourself, or people aren't able to isolate themselves if they contract COVID-19. In our community in Leon County, as of March 2021, the Big Bend Continuum of Care has reported that the average number of nights people are homeless in Big Bend is at 65 nights, which is better than our national average of 144, but their goal is for care of less than 30 days. Additionally, resources for permanent supportive housing are needed, as a few hundred people currently face chronic homelessness, and currently that rate of individuals returning to homelessness within a 2-year period is at 33%. Additionally, with less than half of the numbers of volunteers that these shelters normally have due to COVID-19, the number of reported homeless individuals has doubled during the pandemic. So essentially less people to work with it and a lot more cases to take care of. And there is, in general, a strain of resources to fight homelessness. So not only are they at a higher risk of contracting COVID-19, but people are also at a higher risk of not being able to find shelter at all. In Leon County, the Kearney's main facility was closed for over a year until April 1st of this year. due to concerns of having people in that close proximity, which has caused an increased cost in running multiple facilities. And then another major shelter, City Walk Urban Mission, was required to close their local shelter to comply with local ordinances, leading to a larger strain on resources available to the homeless population. So there aren't really a ton of places for people to go, and the places where they do have to go put them at high risk of contracting COVID-19. And then in general, there's an affordable housing crisis. Not a lot of people are renting anyways during the pandemic. And in general, Leon County's severe housing problem, lack of available affordable housing, has really exacerbated the goals of mitigation that the CDC eviction moratorium has kind of set out to meet. So the eviction moratorium is definitely needed because of that great risk to COVID-19, as well as we're still feeling the effects of COVID-19. So it's 100% still needed. The second misconception that we see most of the time is people are still coming to us thinking that the eviction moratorium is automatic. It's not. A lot of people will come to us thinking that just by virtue of a pandemic happening, that they'd be protected from eviction. What you have to do, a tenant must sign and deliver a copy of a CDC declaration to their landlord if they're eligible, and keep a copy of that declaration to file with the court along with their responses if they're going to face an eviction proceeding. Which actually ties into kind of like a sub misconception as well, is if an eviction is filed against you and you had previously signed a CDC declaration, you still have to respond to that court, to the court. You have to provide a response. You can't just sit there. The CDC eviction moratorium is definitely not automatic. You have to take steps to prove your eligibility, to certify your eligibility by signing that CDC declaration and turning it in. And then also, by the way, as a general FYI, the current CDC eviction moratorium expires on June 30th, 2021. And then the final misconception that we have is that if you qualify for the eviction moratorium, that must mean that you qualify for rental assistance, which unfortunately is not the case. To kind of quickly go over the eligibility requirements for the eviction moratorium, to qualify as a covered person, you have to meet 5 requirements for coverage and sign that CDC declaration, like I said, and then provide a copy to your landlord, which, by the way, if you need a CDC declaration, you can find one on our website. But the 5 requirements for eligibility is an income requirement. Your income needs to be less than $99,000 in 2021 or $198,000 if you're filing jointly, or you received a stimulus check, or you're not required to report your income to the IRS. You have to have experienced a financial impact. You have to be able to say that you were not able to pay your full rent due to a substantial reduction in household income, or you lost your job, or you lost hours, or you have extraordinary medical costs, which is about 7.5% of your gross income. You have to make best efforts to obtain all government assistance for rent or housing. You have to declare that you're at risk of homelessness. So if you're evicted, you don't have alternative housing, and you'll either have to go live in a homeless shelter, or you're going to be homeless, or you're going to have to go live with family. And then additionally, you still have to make those timely partial payments. Have to affirm that you've done your best to make those timely partial payments in the amount as much as you can afford due to your circumstances. And those eligibility requirements can often differ from the emergency rental assistance that we have available to us. So the state and county resources do have different eligibility requirements. For example, some counties require individuals to demonstrate that they had worked a set amount of hours in order to be eligible for that rental assistance. Some ERA funds just aren't available for people who are experiencing high medical costs or funeral costs during the pandemic. Just in general, right off the bat, in the eligibility requirements, if you make less than $99,000, if you make 75 or had made 75K a year, while you may qualify for the CDC eviction moratorium, depending on your household size, you may not qualify for an ERA based off of that area median income. So just because you do qualify for the eviction moratorium doesn't necessarily mean that you'd qualify for rental assistance. You'd still be protected under the eviction moratorium, but that misconception is there that you'd also be able to get that rental assistance. So I think that covers everything. Here's a list of our sources if you'd like to take a look through it all, but those are the misconceptions that I wanted to address today.
Thank you so much, Alex. That was great. We appreciate you sharing that info, and we will continue to share information that hopefully will give you continued information, legal information, as we learn more. Like he said, June 30th is an important deadline for now, and we'll continue to keep you up to date. This video provides legal information, but should not be considered legal advice. This video does not create an attorney-client relationship either, or substitute legal advice that you've been given. You may have defenses that we haven't discussed here, so seeking out an attorney or legal help is always advisable. You can find more information about LSNF and lots of eviction and housing material at www.lsnf.org, or call us at 850-385-9007. We have additional videos and housing legal information, along with CDC information and an entire page dedicated to understanding this declaration page as well. So we really appreciate you joining us once again, and we will see you next time. Bye.